Hi everybody, and welcome to another one of our independent living challenges. This time we're going to be looking at online security and looking at shoring up some of your defences. Now, this is going to be a bit of a talking one again, so it's not going to be a watching me going around doing things. It's going to be me kind of talking things through and hopefully giving you a little bit of sensible advice and maybe giving you some pointers for things that you might want to go and then check for yourself. As always, if you're already doing these things or you think that you're already up on all of this information, that's fantastic, that's great. You can turn me off, no problem whatsoever. However, if you're not too up on this type of stuff or you've not really thought about it before, then it might be a good idea for you to keep watching. Okay? Right, the first thing I want to talk about then is passwords. Now, passwords can be irritating at times, and everybody forgets passwords every now and then. But we have these days got things like smartphones that mean a lot of the time you haven't really got to remember your password. But what people still tend to do, they haven't really got to remember your passwords and stuff these days because you've got like face recognition and fingerprint recognition on things like iPhones. People still don't use particularly very secure passwords, and what a lot of people tend to do, which is a big mistake, is they tend to use the same password for everything. So it might be that you've got a Netflix account, you've got a bank account, you've got this account, you've got that account, all your social media accounts, things like that. To keep things simple, a lot of people just use the same password for everything. And if you do that, you're massively at risk of your data and your things being compromised and people being able to get in there. And that's not necessarily by somebody guessing your password, but that's because the more sites you put your password into and the more things you use your password with, the more likely it is at some stage that one of those services or one of those social media sites will have a data breach. And that does happen every now and then. I was victim of this a few years ago when one of our energy suppliers' websites got hacked, and my email address, my password, as part of that, were involved in a data breach, and that then suddenly meant that criminals all over the world have got access to my email address, and particularly they got access to my password that was associated with it. And I was a bit of a fool at the time. Back then, I used to use the same password for lots of different sites. I mean, luckily, I was able to change it before anything happened, but I do know people who have been affected by this personally before, where a password has come out in something like a data breach, and that's then meant that a criminal organisation's been able to just go to lots of different websites trying this particular person's email and trying the password until they eventually find their way in. And once that's happened, all sorts of weird and wonderful things can end up happening, and you can end up getting defrauded, losing money, or some people will log into your accounts and sort of try and pretend to be you and try and do other people out of money and stuff. There's people whose eBay accounts get hacked, and then they steal money off people pretending to sell stuff on your eBay account, and then suddenly just vanish into thin air. There's all sorts of different ways you can be affected by these things. There's been cases before of people's social media accounts being hacked, and then people like impersonating people or putting really nasty comments and stuff out there, which then obviously tarnishes the reputation of that particular person, even though it wasn't them that did it in the first place. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you've got secure passwords, and not only are they secure, that you've got different passwords for everything. And if you don't think you can remember them all, that's absolutely fine, because there are things that you can download, like password managers and apps and things like that, where they will save and encrypt your password safely for you. And you can then, obviously, if you ever do forget a password, you can go onto that particular app, and then you can go and make sure that your password is retrieved and things. It's particularly important that your email password is very secure. And the reason for that is if somebody can hack into your email account, then that will often mean that if they've got your email password, they can then go and reset your passwords for everything else that you've got registered to that email address. So if I've got an email address that I use with Facebook, and I use with Instagram, and I use with my bank, and I use with this service and that service, if somebody hacks into my email address, they can go on to all these different services websites, type in my email address and then press the link on it that says I've forgotten my password. And where does the password reset link go? Goes into my email inbox. So if my email inbox has been compromised, it's very, very, very bad news indeed. So it's very important that you make sure that your passwords are secure. There are lots of sites and things you can use that can generate secure passwords for you. It's never really a good idea to do what a lot of people do, tend to do things like the date of birth, because it's too easily guessable. There's quite a few people out there who still like to use the word password for the password or some kind of variation on that. Well, if you're subject to something like a brute force attack, all these common passwords and things, that the hackers know about them, and they'll just try them on your account and be able to get in quite easily. So it's better really if you can use passwords that don't particularly mean anything, or that only really you know the meaning of, and that are kind of going to be unique. Okay, so avoid names of pets, mother's maiden names, the word password, stuff like that, dates of birth, like I've said. Avoid all that stuff. And make sure you've got secure passwords. Now, another good thing that you can do, and it might surprise you actually, is you can find out if your email address and password have been subject to a data breach before. And if you just go on Google and type in data breach checker or data breach email checker, there's quite a few websites where you can do this, but basically when the search results come up in Google, go on one of the sites that comes up, and all you have to do is type in your password. Not your password, don't type your password in, type in your email address that are associated with your different accounts and things, and it will tell you if your email address has ever been leaked as part of a data breach. And you might be surprised, when I typed my password in when I typed my email address in a few months ago, I found that it had been subject to 3 different data breaches. And that meant that as part of that data breach, not only had people obviously got my email address, but they'd also got my password potentially that I was using with those particular sites and things at the time. One of them, as I mentioned before, was my energy supplier. One of them was the MyFitnessPal app that I used to use to track runs and stuff, and used to track calories and stuff for eating and things like that. So again, a fairly minor, silly, daft little app, but because I was using the same password with that as I was using for lots of other things, potentially if somebody had got my password from that crap little app, they could have then hacked into things like my Netflix and Facebook and stuff like that. So it's quite frightening what people can do with your information. But yeah, my first bit of advice to you is go and check your passwords. If they're all the same, change them, and make sure doubly that your email password is secure. And if you want to see if your data's been breached before, go on one of the data breach checking websites. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about then is about social media and privacy settings and things like that. So all of you will know about the fact that you can put privacy settings on, and you probably have already made your mind up about what works for you, what doesn't work, and things like that. The reason I want to mention it is because obviously as you're getting older and you're sort of moving into adulthood, you're going to find that people are going to be wanting to potentially look on your social media to kind of build up a picture of what you're like and who you are, particularly potential employers in the future. One of the things that a lot of employers do now, in fact most employers do it, is as soon as you apply for a job, one of the things that they're going to do unofficially is they're going to look you up on things like Facebook. And it may be that your Facebook profile is perfectly secure and everything on there is perfectly legitimate. But if they can get on there and they can go back and they can look at what you've been up to and in kind of chronological order and go back over the last few years, and they can see that actually a few times you've been making inappropriate comments about something, or you've been airing strong views on a particular topic or subject or something like that, or there's just loads of photos of you going out every Friday and Saturday night getting bladdered or something, and then they go and they look at somebody else's Facebook profile and they can see that that theirs is all perfectly secure and stuff. If it's between you and that person, potentially it's going to become part of the decision making process. So you've kind of got to be careful what you do on social media. Obviously everybody's entitled to free speech, but you've kind of got to be careful. Got to be careful what you say, because when you say something on social media, it's kind of there forever. If you say something, inappropriate on something like Twitter, people will be able to go back in 50 years' time and they'll be able to see that you said that. It's there and it's documented. It's not like having a conversation with your mates down the pub where people just forget about things and things get twisted. If it's typed out and it's got your name above it on social media, it's logged and it's documented that you said it, and people will think whatever it is that you said you believe. And it may be that you've changed your views on things over time, but it's going to be very difficult convincing somebody once something's written down that's kind of not the case. So you do need to make sure that you check your privacy settings. I'm certainly not going to tell you there's a right or a wrong way to do this, because it may be that you do want people to have access to your profile and stuff, but you've just got to be kind of careful and mindful of what you're putting on there. Other things to be careful about, some of these may be fairly obvious, but there are cases where these things have come back to bite certain people. So kind of make sure that if you're doing something like going on holiday, that you don't put it all over social media saying, I'm going on holiday on whatever date, or posting onto your social media for the world to see that you are on holiday and that your house is empty for 2 weeks, because then all the local scumbags are going to be going around and nicking your PlayStation or something, aren't they? So you've got to be careful with stuff like that. It's nice that obviously social media is all about sharing stuff, isn't it? And sharing, happy memories and fun and stuff. So when you're on holiday, you do want to tell everybody, but it's probably best to maybe wait to upload all those holiday snaps until when you get back, rather than letting everybody know that you're out of the country and you're out of your house and there's nobody around for a few weeks and stuff. Other things that I've seen on social media as well that can be a bit sort of unsettling is a lot of people like to upload things like the runs and things like that. So if they've done a fitness session or gone for a big run, they'll upload that onto social media. If you're using sort of an app like Strava or Map My Run, apps like that, you can, when you upload your run to it, you can make it public if you want. But the thing is with that, it shows an exact route map of where you've been, what time you're going and doing it, and it also shows you start and finish point, which most of the time is going to be people's houses. So it's kind of a very, very quick way to put out into the public domain exactly where you live, what time you go out for a run each day, and the exact route that you take. And that may not be the most sensible thing to be kind of broadcasting to the entire world, because of the world we live in. There's some scumbags out there and some dodgy people, and it's probably best that you don't let the entire world know exactly when you're out of the house or exactly where you're going each time of day, and what you're up to 24/7. So it's just things to think about and things to consider. But certainly have a look at your privacy settings and think to yourself, does the entire world need to see this, or which things do I want to be public? And have a good look. All the different social media sites and all the different social media apps have got different settings, and I think sometimes they try and make it as complicated as they possibly can. But spend a little bit of time on it and try and make it so that only friends and family is probably the most sensible thing to do. But again, it's your personal choice. If you are making things public, just be mindful about what it is that you're putting out there into the public domain. Okay, then, just to kind of prove a point, and just to finish up, what I've spent a little bit of time doing, it took me about 15 minutes to do this, is I picked a random person that I wasn't friends with on Facebook. So I went to school with this particular person, but I'm not friends with them on Facebook. They are friends with one of my other friends, and they've got a public profile on Facebook. And I spent 15 minutes kind of looking at that, and then I searched for this particular person as well on a few other social media sites and things. And it was interesting what I was able to find out. Again, I haven't seen this person for 20 years. But anyway, this is what I've been able to find out in the last 15 minutes. I've been able to find out what their wife's name is, and that also he's now divorced. So he did have a wife, but now he's divorced, this particular person. I know that he's got 3 children, and I know all 3 of their names. This is just from me being able to go on Facebook and going on other little sites and things. I know that he's got a dog. He's only had his dog since Christmas. I know where he's been on holiday for the last 3 years. and the dates. I know that he owns a caravan that he rents out to people. I don't know how much he charges for it, because that's all on there. I know the exact cars that he owns and all the number plates for him. So if I didn't like this person, I saw him parked at Morrison's or something, I could scratch his car or something, couldn't I? So I know all of that about him. I know the school that 2 of his kids attend because he's put pictures of them up in the uniform. I know the football team he supports. I think I know which political party he votes for based on some of the stuff he's been saying on his social media sites about one of the other political parties. I know that he's not very good at following COVID rules based on what I've seen on his social media. And I know that he doesn't get on with his neighbours very well. And I was able to find out all of that about this particular person in 15 minutes with very little effort. That was by going on Facebook initially and then just searching this particular person's name on a few other things as well. So that was a very, very quick run through then today of some of the things that you should maybe be thinking about in terms of your online security. Don't forget to have a good look at your passwords. Get your passwords changed if you need to. Make sure you've got unique, different passwords for each service or online thing that you're using, and make sure that they're not easy to guess. There are password generators that you can download and use to help you with that and to help you to remember them as well. And the other thing that you need to spend some time on, hopefully, is making sure that your social media accounts are all set up how you want them to be set up. Okay, just making sure that you're not putting out loads of stuff into the public domain unless that's your personal choice. If you want to put stuff out into public domain, it's absolutely fine, but just make sure you've got control over exactly what it is that's going out and exactly who it is that can see it. Okay, the final thing I want to mention that I haven't mentioned yet, that I forgot about initially, was making sure that you've got a sensible private email address as well. A lot of people get the first email address when they're younger, and it'll be like, you know, somebody like me when I was little, I might have had an email address like sexymatt@hotmail.com. Obviously, as you grow up, you've got to grow out of email addresses like that. So my advice is, if you've not got your own private email address, and don't include your school one in this because eventually you won't be able to use your school one. If you haven't got your own sensible private email address that you can use to correspond with people, then get one set up, even if it's just like getting a free one from somewhere like Google. Get something set up, but make sure that you're not using, daft, silly nicknames and stuff in your email, because if you come and apply for a job with somewhere and they see sexymatt@hotmail.com's applied for a job, they're just going to chuck it straight in the bin. Okay, it does not look professional. So that's another little job to maybe get sorted out. Right, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you'll be able to spend a little bit of time looking at some of these things, get some of these things sorted, and yeah, good luck.